talked a lot about the culture of creativity and authenticity at Chipotle.
I think it's fun to be the Chipotle guy because everybody's got a great story about Chipotle.
You're adapting the business for the pandemic. You're right in the middle of that. You've been CMO for 7 years, and it's been quite a run. The company's doubled in size, but you are facing headwinds, right? As every brand does at some point. How you are leading during times like this, when it's more important than ever to keep your team's confidence high.
We've created a culture that wants to win and that is innovative. When all else fails, lean on that brand purpose. We've had some trials and tribulations for sure on Chipotle, not the least of which was COVID, and transforming the business from 100% in restaurant. During COVID, we were 78% digital. Now we're about 35% digital. And there's a lot of challenges. There's macro pressures. People are not eating out as much. Everybody's battling for a smaller pie of transactions. We had to find new ways to reinforce our value proposition, but I think the team stays motivated because we like to win.
Chris, welcome to the CMO Podcast here at the A&A Masters. How's the meeting going? How many times have you been at this meeting, this confab?
Probably, I think at least 10. I've been on the board for 8 or 9 years, maybe 10 years. So yeah, I've come every year. I really enjoy it. I think it's a chance to listen to other people talk about their brands, but it also gives you a chance to listen to them doing that, but thinking about how those lessons apply to your own brands. We were talking earlier about you need to reinvent your brand all the time, and just that time to just sit and reflect on your brand and hear somebody else is a pretty precious resource. And so it's a great place to do it here at the Masters for sure.
Yeah, it's reflection time, right?
100%.
So what about this year? What's the zeitgeist here at the A&A?
Certainly there's AI, right? And how it's transforming. I mean, there people in the beginning, I think one of the first presentations they did was a gentleman on AI, and it was great. But it just thought it's changing everything in a really rapid way. But I think that the core tenets of what you have to do, understand your consumer, know your brand, be an expert on those things. The trends will come and go. The fundamentals of marketing remain the same. Just the way you execute them will be a lot different, a lot faster, a lot more interesting, I think.
Now, anyone you have met, I know we're kind of midweek right now, anyone you've met this week or a conversation you had or a presentation you sat in that made you go, I need to take that back home?
Yeah, I always like Mark's presentations.
Mark Pritchard.
Mark Pritchard from P&G. Yeah. I mean, he went back to the fundamentals and how, I mean, his premise at the beginning was brands don't have life cycles. We don't believe in those at P&G because there's always new ways to reinvent your brand. And I think that few brands need to really be repositioned. It's just a matter of telling your brand story in new and relevant ways on a constant basis. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I've tried to do with every brand we've had. Some brands I worked on back in my General Mills days, like Nature Valley, those were legacy brands that have been around a long time. Nature Valley went through a period where it was almost discontinued. And then, we figured out what the right way to position it was, and it started soaring again. And so, Chipotle is one of those brands that's been around for quite a while, but we got to find new and interesting ways to engage the consumer.
How do you navigate a conference like this? Because, you're Chipotle, people want to get on your agenda. If you walk down the hall of exhibitors, it's tough to get through that. How do you navigate all the interesting new people you could meet, some old friends you want to see, managing that balance? How many meetings do you take?
So I'm on the board. And so there's a lot of activities with the board and the CMO Growth Council and those things. I meet a lot of people. It sounds bad, but I meet a lot of people in the bar. I mean, if you hang around at the cocktail places later on, there's a lot of informal conversations there. I think that it's friends of friends. I mean, you end up seeing a lot of people that you knew from one part of your life or not. I think it's fun to be the Chipotle guy because everybody's got a great story about Chipotle and how their kids eat it and they eat it. And I just want them to eat it more frequently. It would be great. But I think that's how you do it. And, I don't take a lot of meetings. I don't have time for a lot of them. But what we try to do is, and if you give a presentation, there's always a big line of people there ready to give you stuff. And I can, send them to the right people on our teams to vet those. So it's great. I mean, it's a great atmosphere. It's a lot of energy here, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Now, this is a pillar event for you. You're here almost every year. Any other conferences? I get this question a lot. Which one should I go to?
The one that I keep hearing that I need to go to is Possible.
Yeah. Yep.
And so my son lives in Miami, so that's certainly on the radar screen. But the A&A has different conferences. So I've spoken at one down in Carlsbad as well. That's about analytics. Mm-hmm. And so, but I don't I don't go to them that many times. At this point in my career, it's a luxury I have that I can just call up people if I want to talk to them, and they're happy to talk about Chipotle. So
Sure. Do you go to Cannes every year? Is there any other one?
I haven't been to Cannes in the last few years. I think
Okay.
Cannes about every 2 or 3 years is about the right
Yeah.
cadence. There's only so many times I can
Yeah.
go to La Garite and Baoli and survive. But I feel like it's not an every year event for us. It's every 2-3 years.
Yeah, got it. Now, do you do restaurant visits when you come to a meeting like this?
Almost whenever I go, we try to hit a restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a pretty new Chipotle just right here at the entrance to this facility. That's an amazing one. It's one of our best. I oversee our new restaurant development, so I'm always looking at our new restaurants, and we've kind of updated our image a little bit inside. Still very much the heritage of Chipotle, but we just wanted it to have a little bit more natural look and feel that you could feel without putting words on the wall and all of those things, but just kind of our organic, fresh, natural nature. We wanted it to shine through a little bit because, quite honestly, a lot of other concepts have copied what Chipotle has done. But I was just in Denver, and I went to Chipotle number 9, and it was the older tin and trim. And I'll tell you what, it still looked terrific. It was kind of a strange layout because that was the old days, and they were just taking space and redoing it. And actually, some of our best Chipotles are that. You still get skylights where we do we take old banks or banks that went out, and we can kind of use that space differently. But that old restaurant, it still just felt really good about Chipotle. And it was just kind of nice to get back to the roots a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Now, this isn't the first time you've been on the show, your company. It's the first time you've been on the show personally. But about 5 years ago, actually during COVID, Stephanie Perdue, your VP of brand, came on the show. And she was great. She was dynamite. She's still with you, which I think is wonderful.
I've worked with Stephanie, I think, for a dozen years because I was with her for my whole tenure at Taco Bell, and then almost my whole way. I hired her on not too long after I started at Chipotle, and so yeah, she's a wonderful marketer, a wonderful person, and she's been able to put up with me for a dozen years, so that's pretty good too.
So, what about her? What's her super strength? You've known her very well. You've seen her evolve and change and mature.
Stephanie she can handle a lot of stuff, a lot of balls in the air, and she's super organized. She's very good at designing the right processes to get things done. That is not a strength that I have. And so having her, I'm more about one of my core tenets is have a sense of urgency to get things done. I love this. My team does not like it when I say this, but they'll ask, well, when do you want it by? And I'll ask the question, hey, there's only 2 days a year that you can't get anything done. You know what those are? And people usually go, well, maybe Christmas or Thanksgiving. And I'm like, nope, it's yesterday or tomorrow. So you might as well do it today. And I think that sense of urgency that I have, it helps her to say, hey, let's put a process in place that can make this happen on the timelines that we need. So she's really good at that, but she also has great marketing instincts. And she's really good in meetings. She's a superstar. She really is. I've been lucky to work with her for so long.
Well, when I talked to her 5 years ago, we talked about your restage was in full throttle. You're adapting the business for the pandemic. You're right in the middle of that. We talked a lot about the culture of creativity and authenticity at Chipotle. And she talked about you being such a great boss, and also Brian, who went on to Starbucks. But she talked about what a wonderful boss you are. So I'd like you to reflect on that a little bit. How are you a great boss? What could our audience learn from, because she was real, obviously she's been with you 12 years. She made that choice to come to Chipotle with you. What makes you a great boss? And don't put that into ChatGPT. We talked about doing that
that's right.
before the show.
I'd probably give you a better answer, but I think a couple things. So I don't ask people to do things that I wouldn't do myself. When I first became CMO at Taco Bell, I was the CMO of the people, and I think that was a really meaningful title for me to have. Maybe I'm less of the people now that I've been doing it for a long time, but I think people were rooting for me to have that job. And, when I got it, I think that I've always treated people really well. I've always been nice to everybody. It's a small business. It's a small industry. If you can't treat people poorly, it'll come around to bite you. And even when you're in positions of influence, especially I see people treat agencies poorly. I'm like, just because you can, you should not do that. You treat people as normal people. I think that I'm very clear about what I want to do and the things that we need to do and accomplish. And I think that helps people manage the work a little bit more. And I like to talk, but I also listen to what they say, and we just try to solve those problems. And I kind of have 3 tenets that I ask people to do. I want people to be innovators, storytellers, and collaborators. And I want you to be an innovator because innovation is what's going to get us out of any jam, and it's going to keep us going. There's nothing like new innovation to bring new people in and remind existing people to come back. And so how do we have a culture of creativity and ideas? From a storyteller standpoint, everybody likes a good storyteller. Chipotle's, for example, as a brand, has great stories to tell. How do we tell them in new and interesting ways? And then collaboration. So in the marketing department at Chipotle, I've interviewed every single person that falls under me, whether it's in culinary or in any aspect of marketing.
Before you hired them.
Before I hire them. And I give them what I call the conference room test. And it really was at the beginning. And so we kind of sets the tone. But if you're not willing, if you're interviewing somebody and you wouldn't be willing to walk in a conference room with them at 5:00 on a Friday if you had to, we're not hiring them. Because when you're building a team, one bad apple may not ruin the whole bunch, but one bad apple does ruin the team. And so we just want all kinds of people and diverse opinions, but all of them need to be good people, and they need to be collaborators and work with everybody else, because no one person could get something all the way to market by themselves. We need that collaboration, and one of us is smart, but all of us are a lot smarter. And so I think that's the other strength that I have is we build great teams, and then we let them run. And I think that I want people. I purposely have had a smaller team at Chipotle than I've had in other places because I want to give people robust jobs, and I want them to get a chance to get stuff in the marketplace. And, we want to test a lot. We want to put a lot of irons in the fire. And that's just been a key to our success. Not all of them will work, but that's okay. We'll start small. We'll pivot to what works. If something works, we'll pour the gas to it. If it doesn't, we'll pivot away, do something else. But I think that that's fun for people. I'm not just pushing paper around. I'm actually getting projects done. And boy, when people get some responsibility, especially you hire good people and take their ideas and let them put their ideas in the marketplace, it's pretty motivating.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your hack or what's your tip for in that interview of kind of what's your criteria? How do you know someone's going to fit in the culture the way you see it to meet those storytelling, innovation, collaboration?
I think that a lot of it is probably softer skills. By the time they get to me, they can do the job.
They're pretty vetted, yeah.
And it was interesting. When I first started doing it, there were only a couple people that I was like, no. And I remember I was telling the hiring manager, they're like, well, what do you think of this guy? I mean, he's got this and this and this. And I'm like, nope. And he said, well, why not? And I'm like, do you want to hang out with that guy? He wasn't
pretty
very interesting.
Criteria.
He was very curt, and he just didn't seem like a good team player. And so I don't know that there's one thing that I can pinpoint, but I will say that we've been a pretty good judge so far. And I just said, hey, do you want to go in a conference room with that guy at 5? And he goes, I see what you mean. And so, by the time, the cool thing about that is that's like maybe the only time I've had to do it. Now I say I'm going to interview everybody, but people have that mindset then in mind. So they don't get to me anymore because they'll go, oof, I don't think we're going to like this person, even though they might be super skilled. And so I don't have to make that decision very often. I don't have to put the kibosh on them, which is great. So it lets the team make the decision, not just me.
It's a great criteria. Yeah. I mean, pause on it. Do you want to be with that person? You're going to be with them a lot.
Going to be with them a lot. And you got to want to be with them because if that person, for whatever reason, you don't want to be with them, you're not going to loop them in. You're not going to want to collaborate. You're not going to want to bring them in, and it's going to bring the whole group down.
Yeah. Sarah, Judy, you want to be with me? My podcast team. No, we really like hanging out together.
Yeah,
and with
that's
Andrea,
right. And when you can work with your friends, right? They say, if you have a job you like, right? It's not really a job at all, but that's been part of the beauty of Chipotle is we got to kind of press reset on the brand back in 2018 and hire everybody and bring the people that we wanted from Denver to us in Southern California when we moved the headquarters, but then hire the new people that we like. So I get to work on this fabulous brand with my friends in a great location.
Pretty good.
That's why retention's been pretty high. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Turns out.
Now, you've been CMO for 7 years, and it's been quite a run. The company's doubled in size. Brand equity seems very strong, but you are facing headwinds, right? As every brand does at some point. So talk about how you are leading during times like this, right? When it's more important than ever to keep your team's confidence high, to reinforce all those things you talked about, innovation, storytelling, collaboration. So just talk about that.
Look, I think that we've created a culture that wants to win and that is innovative, that wants to tell stories and wants collaboration. I will say, and you covered it in your book a long time ago about the brand purpose.
Yep.
And when all else fails, lean on that brand purpose. We've had some trials and tribulations for sure on Chipotle, not the least of which was COVID, and transforming the business from 100% in restaurant to now we're, during COVID, we were 78% digital. Now we're about 35% digital. And the different stresses and demands of Chipotle didn't do LTOs or innovation. That's been a big piece. We've really expanded the footprint. I think there were a little over 2,000 restaurants when we started. We're getting close to open our 4,000th restaurant now. And I oversee all that new restaurant development, but keeping those teams focused on the task. And look, I think at Chipotle, this is the way people should eat. And so this brand purpose we have of cultivating a better world, I tell our team all the time, look, real food is better. It's better for you as a person. It's better for people in general, and it's better for the planet. And we're the good guys, so we're supposed to win. So we better go win. And there's a lot of challenges. There's macro pressures. People are not eating out as much. Everybody's battling for a smaller pie of transactions. There's a lot of more price-pointed advertising, which isn't Chipotle's jam. We're values. Yeah, I think values what you get for what you pay. Yeah. And for Chipotle, there's a quality element to that. People are chasing dollars, the affordability, just the absolute price point a little bit. So we got to reinforce. We got to find new ways. It's kind of what we talked about at the beginning, new ways to reinforce our value proposition. But I think the team stays motivated because we like to win. We've been winning. And boy, that brand purpose is a powerful driver of we're supposed to win, so we need to go do it.
Yeah. What's going on with the category? Is it economic? Is it...
It's very macro. So, we sit what we call fast casual. So there's casual dining places like the Chili's and Applebee's. Yep. There's fast casual in the middle, and then there's QSR, which is the drive-through kind of places. And I think for the last 7+ years, fast casuals benefited because we're offering amazing quality food at a pretty reasonable price. And so we were really kind of stealing from casual dining. We were stealing from QSRs. People traded up and traded down respectively. And so, but boy, with the price pointed ads and some of the moves that there's a lot of people are kind of middling, and we're not doing as well as we'd like, but we're doing okay and better than most. But there's a few big winners with price pointed ads. And so, that's kind of been the struggle. So I think fast casual's kind of been bleeding a little bit where we were getting the benefit of trade down and trade up. Now they're kind of stealing it back from us. But we think it's a temporary thing. We still love our value proposition. I think Chipotle at its core is craveable food you feel good about eating, and think how rare that is in your life, because most things that taste good, you don't feel good about.
Right.
Most things you feel good about don't taste that good. We've got a really unique spot there that creates a great emotional connection for people. And, it's nice when maybe the numbers aren't coming what you want, but you walk around a place like this and go, oh, I just ate there yesterday, or my kids eat there all the time.
Everyone has a
story.
Like,
okay, people are still going. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. How has your role changed the most in the 7 years you've been here?
I think that in some ways it hasn't. That's an interesting question. So I'll back up. At the beginning, we had to establish everything. So we were starting from scratch. The brand was coming off some food safety issues. We had to fundamentally put together what's our story going to be. I didn't know how good Chipotle was. I was always a big fan. And when I walked in, I just didn't know how good it was until I got there. And then all of our food with integrity principles, that our animal welfare, we're the only restaurant that's got an A+ in animal welfare. We spend $500 million more on our ingredients to make sure they're responsibly raised versus commodity ingredients. We have a lot of principles. We don't have any artificial flavors, colors, preservatives. We don't have any freezers in the restaurant. We don't have any can openers. It's all fresh. And so we're different. And I didn't really appreciate how different, because we're a real restaurant. Every Chipotle is a real restaurant. A lot of places are just reheating food. So how do we tell those stories in new and interesting ways? How do we be relevant with young people.
Mhm.
We embraced all kinds of different media. So I think in the first few years, man, we were just establishing what Chipotle is about and really understanding the brand and tapping into those things. Now we have a lot more talented people at the company. They do a lot of that. They bring a lot of ideas. I think in social media, we're not just one of the best restaurant brands, we're one of the best brands in social. And that's a tribute to the team. And for me, listening to them. And, we've learned a lot about this brand and over time. So I think, and then I've taken on development. So we didn't have new restaurant development when I first started. So I took that on. Um, that's been an education for me. Like those people know a lot more about real estate than I do, but I think learning to manage where I'm not the expert in that, but here's where I think we can help. And so we've hired some good people. They can handle a lot more of the details, and I can just sort of be a little bit of an orchestra conductor around things, and maybe the strategy and thought leader more than the doer that I was at the
Mhm.
beginning.
Mhm. What are your priorities now? Personal priorities. What are you spending your time on?
From a business
Yeah.
standpoint,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think figuring out another way, other ways to talk about the real fresh food and the quality food of this brand. We've had a lot of success with our employees
Mhm.
advertising, and that I tell you that
Yeah.
insight was born out of when I got there. The first thing you do at Chipotle is you spend some time in the restaurant learning the restaurant operation. That's where all the action happens. And I remember when I first started in 2018, it was my second week, and I went into the restaurant and I saw our morning prep. So people were coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and with the and they start prepping the food for lunch, right? Because it takes 4 or 5 hours, multiple people to do it. It's a team, and we're bringing in whole avocados, we're bringing in whole onions. We don't have it's fresh chicken that's brought in, never frozen, and it was more like a farmer's market in there
Mm.
than any restaurant I'd ever seen. And I stepped out and I called our agency at the time. We're still with Venables. And I said, "Have you guys ever done morning prep?" And they're like, "No." And so I said, "How about you do it next week?" And so we set them up in San Francisco and they did it. And that was where the behind the foil ad came from. Cause I'm like, we got to show our employees are heroes for doing
Yeah.
this. And they were so proud and they were so skilled. And I think I just kept asking them, what's everything? What are the things? And so I wanted to make them the stars because they're the
Sure.
stars of the show.
Yeah.
And so we sent out a message from me and the COO at the time, who's Scott Boatwright, who's now the CEO. And we asked people, I said, make me a short video that tells me everything that you wish people knew about Chipotle, but they don't. And folks submitted them. We got like 200 videos. They didn't know at the time, but we used those for our casting tapes. And so we brought real employees. All of our employees, they're not paid
Great
actors.
idea.
They're real employees
Mhm.
in, and we just started filming them. And we hired a gentleman by the name of Errol Morris, who was famous
Mm.
for documentaries and his interview style. And that's his voice you hear on there, which is pretty interesting. He has his own thing, but he believes real is beautiful, and so do we. And so it was a great match, and that really launched those. And I think one of the challenges we've had is the employees see these ads, and so they try to feed us sometimes what we want them to say or what they
Mm.
think we want them to say versus being honest and genuine. And I think that was really the difference because they could talk about things in a really organic and authentic way that if we used VO or some other technique, it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. Also, our ads started show we really revamped the whole media plan. And so we started showing up in sports a lot more. And our ads were a little bit more earnest and quiet than your typical
Mhm.
um, competitor
Yeah.
type ads.
Yeah.
And so that really broke through. And I think that, we've been running that campaign on and off with other things sprinkled in there for 7 or so years.
Mhm.
But going back to the inside of that restaurant looks more like a farmer's market than any place. And remember, we're coming off food safety crisis. We don't have anything to hide. Let's just show people what we do and they will love it. And so based on that insight, we've just been as transparent and authentic as we can, even when it goes to hiring influencers, bringing people in, bringing them in the back of the house, showing them what we do. Some of our best posts we've done are employees who film themselves, slicing and dicing in the back with real skills. People go, "Wow, can't believe they do that." And so that's been a big piece of the pie and really effective, even as we've added more digital and done all those
Mm-hmm.
things and transformed the brand. Just going back to the fundamentals of we're a real restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, you're one of the few brands that I think has a differentiating purpose that is so real, so right, so important, and you have conviction about it, which you just expressed. But you've stayed true to that. I was looking back on your history. I mean, the cultivating a better world was 2012, right? Your food with integrity platform 2009. That famous Back to the Start video. It's just
Yeah, I think we didn't do that one.
I know that was before your time,
but
but
I think it's the single best piece of
it's
creative
wonderful. Yeah.
ever in the restaurant space. And we were really gosh, I can't remember. It must have been like 2020, 2021 that we did a sequel to it, where we used the same stop motion animation and did all that.
Yeah.
Today, you'd probably use AI to simulate it, but
Yeah.
and we used the same people who did it, and we did a second one we called. So the first one was Back to the Start. We did a Future Begins,
Yeah.
where we took there was a baby at the end of Back to the Start. We made it for a Future Begins. It starts with that person going off to college, and we told real farmer stories. I mean, and those were spawned. So we said, hey, we want to do a sequel. What's the story going to be? And so we were trying to film content with a lot of the farmers. So as Chipotle has grown up over the years, one of the most challenging things for us is finding unadulterated food and contacting companies who have contacts with farmers that want to do it the right way with humane animal practices and free from antibiotics and all that bad stuff. So we started meeting some of these real farmers, and we went out to Iowa and we started talking to these farmers, and I didn't realize how emotional it was going to be. So these were family farms, and they were raising hogs for our carnitas and those things, and just how hard it is to be a farmer. And the average age of a farmer in America is something like 60 years old, and they were losing money before COVID. And so it's not a job, it's a calling. And I got to tell you, I mean, how hard those people work, and it was amazing. And so we ended up featuring them. We like to do different things at Chipotle because our restaurant is different. We like to show up in different places. So we had a Rose Parade float. But anyway, we were talking about the story of one of these farmers, and this woman was telling us the story where she goes, I grew up on the hog farm, but I left. I went into the city, and my dad got a hip injury. And he said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to sell the farm. And she goes, you can't do that. That's our family legacy. And so she left her job in the city, moved back to the hog farm, really didn't know that much about hog farming, but figured out how to do it. And the trials and tribulation of her, that's the story of A Future Begins. That Stephanie and I basically said, hey, let's just tell this story. This would be interesting, that the kid goes off, comes back to the farm. He adopts new practices and more modern practices that helps the family farm survive. That's where it came from. Again, grounded in that insight of, man, farming's hard, right?
Let's, I want to drill down a little bit on this. You've had consistency in your purpose, but lots of creativity in bringing it to life. That's hard to do. And you've just been talking about it. You brought back the video. So what's your counsel? How do you lead culture to stay grounded in the purpose? The first thing you said when I said, how are you dealing with the headwinds, was ground ourselves in the purpose, but set the expectation. We got to innovate, got to change, but the purpose doesn't change. What do you do to reinforce that? How do you lead a culture like that? Because that's pretty magical.
Yeah, I think you want to be clear about the things that are you can't violate. You have to have a good sense of the tone of your brand and what it is. And so I think that the tone of Chipotle's brand got really defensive over food safety and got really controlling about it. And so by the time we went, look, our food safety was solved, and food safety was elevated to an absolute science, in the 2015, 2016 era. So we don't have those kind of issues anymore. But I think that we had to there was still a lot of latent love for that brand because it's craveable food you feel good about eating. And so how do we tap into that? And, we kind of have to acknowledge a little bit that this brand isn't just owned by us, it's owned by everybody. And there's and we wanted to be cool and we wanted to be relevant. So, we set out with Chipotle in 2018. It's one of our key tenets of the brand that there's 5 things we want to do: improve operations, those things. But one is make the brand more visible, more relevant, and more loved. And so we look to embrace people's brand love. And there are a lot of people. I mean, you can imagine, I love Chipotle. I eat it multiple times a week, but there are people who express their brand love in ways that I find phenomenal. I think Mikael Williams from the Knicks has said he's eaten it every day for 10 years. I mean, God bless him. But I think that we just wanted to, we knew we had to be relevant with people in their 20s. That's because people ask, well, who's your consumer target? Well, we have 2 million people now a day that come into Chipotle. And so we have people from, 3 years old to 80 plus, right? But we want to be relevant with people in their 20s. Because why? Because people in their 20s define what's cool in culture, whether it's in sports or music or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're always relevant with them, we'll never go out of style. And the cool thing about people in their 20s is whether you're in your 40s or 50s or whether you're in your teens, you want to be in your 20s. And so it kind of is a nice battleground for us. And we also, again, I'll go back to what I said before. Our brand is different. We want to show up in different ways. So that gives us a freedom to experiment. How do we bring new people into the fold? And so we did collaborations with cosmetics companies like Elf. We did one Chipotle. So the insight was, hey, your lipstick rubs off on the burrito. How do we do a lip stain with a company that has a similar philosophy about testing and everything that we do? How do we do those things? And so all of a sudden now I'm showing up or our brand is showing up in girls cosmetics and, young ladies cosmetics and things. That's a place. Wow. What other food brand can be there? And, we did a partnership in Formula One when it still is on the rise, but we did that. What other restaurant brand shows up there? We were at the Rose Parade because the Rose Parade is all natural ingredients. Yep. Hey, we're all natural ingredients. Let's do that. So we just created that culture of experimentation, and I like to be first. So it's like, how do we do something where we're first? And what are these other partnerships? I'm like, our video gaming, when I came there in 2018, Fortnite was single-handedly lowering the GPA of every young male in America. And I'm like, how do I get a piece of this? And so a friend of mine worked in media, called me and said, hey, I'm working with this gaming company. They got 3 guys up here in Manhattan Beach that are playing. They're 3 of the top 15 players in Fortnite. They eat Chipotle 3 times a week. Are you interested? And we're like, yeah, we're interested. And so we went up there and we're always again, we start small on things and then we'll pour the gas to what works and we'll pivot to what doesn't. And I think when we started out, we want to make sure we show up right in the culture. And we didn't want to parade around these 3 guys as splashy. We wanted to feel authentic that this is what they do already. So we don't pay anybody to extol the virtues of the brand who already isn't a brand fan. And I will tell you the other part is, so we've been on Roblox, we're at the Rose Parade, we're at all these different places. But the one tenet that the team talks about that I say all the time is, great, well, don't be lame. Because you only get one chance to make a first impression. So if we're going to show up with
Head and Shoulders,
if we're going to show up with Elf, or we're going to show up with Chipotle, or we're going to show up in gaming, or we're going to show up in sports, don't be lame. Make sure you understand that platform, and we do it the right way. And I remember the team, when we first did our Roblox execution, we've created a bit of a Chipotle world in Roblox. And I remember when they first pitched me the idea, they said, yeah, we're going to create this branded world inside of Roblox, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm like, well, the potential for it to suck is really high, because when brands start going on other platforms and creating their own worlds, it could be bad. And I'm like, I don't care how much time and energy and even money we've spent on this. If it's lame, we will not launch. And the team said that was always in our head, that don't be lame, don't be lame. And you know what? They created a great world that we've built on multiple times now. But that legacy of, hey, have a sense of urgency, let's experiment, but don't be lame. Kind of works.
And you're doing this with a small group.
Pretty small group, yeah.
And that's pretty amazing. So it's just that their core work, they're seen as constantly innovate, do stuff that isn't lame.
We hired all of those people. I talked about the conference room test, but we hired all of them I want ideas, because ideas help you differentiate, ideas help you separate, ideas help you win. And there's no substitute for creativity. And we just want people who can generate ideas, and we always talk about in social, we're looking for that intersection of Chipotle and culture. And we found it recently. So I didn't know this. So they brought me the idea of Friday the 13th is a big day in the tattoo community. And we had back in 2019, Adam Levine was performing at the Super Bowl and he took off his shirt and somebody posted, Adam Levine's tatted up like a Chipotle bag because our Chipotle bags have graphics and everything else. And he was a pretty good poster child for that. And so that kind of went viral at the Super Bowl. So we've had this legacy of tatted like a Chipotle bag. And so we did a 1 hour buy one, get one for people who had a tattoo. It's one of our most successful promos we've ever done. They lit up the restaurant. People were very appreciative. And it was on Friday the 13th. And they brought this idea. And that was all I had to do was say yes. And I'm like, really? This is a thing? And they're like, yes, it's a thing. And man, did it work well. So I think finding those ideas, and when somebody brings you an idea like that and they get to execute it, that's pretty rare. There's not a lot of bureaucracy. That's the other beauty is, when we're doing something on the brand, me and Stephanie pretty much decide. And there's not a lot of red tape. And it's just, how do we get it out there? How do we get it out there quickly and effectively? And don't be lame.
And I suspect a high percentage of those don't get scaled.
Some work.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big one. That was a big bet.
Yeah.
Some work, some don't.
Yeah.
And we didn't know when we first did Roblox, we didn't spend a ton of money. We didn't know how it would go. I mean, now we've hit it 3 or 4 times. We thought it'd be a one-off. Okay. But you don't know what's going to be campaignable.
Yeah.
I think when we first went into cosmetics, we did this thing with e.l.f. I'm like, what in the world? Why would this work? Hey, it worked. Then they came back and did an even better one. Then we had to do, okay, how do you build on that? What's the other idea? I think there's a lot of peer pressure on our teams to like, how do you keep topping yourself? Because a lot of people have copied what we do.
Yeah.
We were first in influencer. We were first in gaming. But I'll tell you, when you have the magic happen, gaming was another one where we just sort of wanted to be a part of it. But we really started to drive culture, and we did something with a kind of a little bit, the first person shooting games are certainly the most popular, but there's a pretty big segment of fighting games that don't get a lot of love from brands. When we showed that a lot of love, we had people, 10, 12,000 people in a stadium. When we showed our ad in there, they just started chanting Chipotle, Chipotle, Chipotle on their own. That's one of it still gives me a little bit of chills. That's one of the best moments in my life to see people engage with your brand and be so appreciative of what you're doing. That's how you get people not to just buy your brand, but buy into what you're doing.
Oh, they sense your energy.
100%.
Now, your career path, right? It's almost destined to bring you to this role. You had 3 academy companies, General Mills, Coca-Cola, Yum Brands. So pretty amazing background. So speak about that for a moment. I mean, how did that shape you to be the kind of leader you are right now that's talking so confidently about this brand that you're watching over?
Yeah, I think, so it was interesting. So I started out in finance. So when I was an econ major in college, I worked in banking, and then I went to work for an equity investment company, and I had to get kind of into marketing, for financial services. And I thought, but everybody at the time, everybody at that company besides maybe me and one other person had an MBA. So I feel like, okay, do I have to go back and get I should go back and get an MBA. And so when I went back to business school at UCLA, I really wanted to see what this brand management thing was, because I wanted to market a physical product. I thought that would be cool. And so I ended up getting a job out of business school at General Mills. So I went to General Mills. General Mills really was a great foundation in brand management and brand architecture and all those things you learned at General Mills, or you learned at P&G is very much General Mills. And you know what? That was a purposeful decision. I wanted to go to P&G or General Mills and have somebody teach me something. Because when I got out of even college, I went to work for a bank because they had a training program. And I'm like, well, they'll teach me how to analyze financial statements, which has been really helpful for me my whole career. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think marketing and all of the numbers and performance and marketing mix models and everything sort of pushed back to my background of the finances and all that stuff. And so General Mills taught me a lot about that. I worked on some great brands there. I worked on cereal. I worked on Nature Valley, was kind of a big moment. I was a brand manager. It was my first, my second brand manager job, I guess, was Nature Valley. What a gem to have. I had a great boss named Beth Brady, and she kind of let me run. And that job gave me the confidence that I can do this brand management stuff. I might be good at this. And then I worked various jobs. I left there and I went to Odwalla, brand called Odwalla. It was a
Mm-hmm.
premium juice and bars
Yep.
brand. It was owned by Coke. It was
Yep.
not in Atlanta. It was down in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And we owned the P&L there. And I kind of, that brand looked like a lot like Nature Valley, but kind of a different category a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. And so kind of did that. And then after about a dozen years in CPG, I'm like, I think I got this. And then Taco Bell called. And at that point, we loved living down in Texas, but I felt like I had to move. And so we went to Southern California, worked
Mm-hmm.
with Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Taco Bell and Yum taught me how to be a marketer. I think I got the brand management education at General Mills and some maybe been on Odwalla, but I got a marketing education of promos and retail's fast.
Yeah.
And so promos and, I might make, I worked on brands that had a lot of advertising presence in General Mills, but they were 3 or 4 ads a year. Man, we might have made 25 ads a year. So I learned from those folks how to do ads, how to do effective ads, how to manage retail, how to manage the calendar, how to move quickly. And so that was a big, uh, that really, I think between those two things really set me up to succeed at Chipotle for sure.
In terms of mentors along the way, can you think of one or two, super influential ones?
Well, Beth Brady was one I mentioned because she gave me the confidence and the trust to kind of go. And I think I kind of model my management style on her. It's like, hey, give people some challenges, and let them go. Brian Nickel has been a great partner. As we kind of turned around Taco Bell, we've definitely turned around Chipotle, and so he was a good sounding board and, a good guy, a good friend.
Yeah.
So I would say those people were probably the most influential, but boy, there's been a lot of people. And I'd have to say Stephanie. I mean, she's worked for me, but she works alongside me, and, she's a great, we covered a lot of how great she is, but she's certainly, I've learned a lot from her.
Mm-hmm. You've worked longer at this brand and this company than anyone in your career. Did you imagine that coming in?
No. I mean, being a CMO is a risky proposition. I mean, I say I don't buy green bananas. You never know what could happen, right? And so, but I don't think I ever could have imagined. I thought, honestly, that my Taco Bell job, my Taco Bell years would be the best job I ever had. And man, Chipotle is even better than that. And so I got a note from the New York Times, and they wanted me to speak on some panel. They said, because you're one of the longest tenured CMOs in the Fortune 500. And I just thought, wow, I mean, it's gone by fast. Everybody says that, but it's true. And, but again, I get to work with my friends on a brand I believe in a great place. So there you go.
What do you hope your legacy will be?
Well, I think I look back on, I hope it's with the people, right? That they learned some stuff from me, that they had a good time doing it. And, they want to give back to other people. I hope that's a big legacy, but I'm proud of the legacy we left even at Taco Bell, where we launched Live Más, we launched Doritos Locos Tacos, that the innovation pipeline and stuff we left there. They're still kind of mining some of that stuff today, and they've done a great job with the brand since we left. And then look, Chipotle, I think that mission of we're bringing better food to more people, and that's a pretty heady thing. So, whether I remember it or not, I'm not that concerned, but those brands will live on forever. And I hope they do. And it's a pretty awesome thing to say you worked on them.
We're going to move to the creative brief, and I'm going to bring our small audience into this in a moment.
Oh, great.
We have a small live audience here. But the first question is, what brand do you remember as a child making an impact on you? The first time you remember a brand being meaningful to you?
I would probably say it has to be some cereal brands. Like I remember Tony the Tiger, and I ate a lot of Frosted Flakes, and I ate a lot of Fruit Loops with Toucan Sam. So I remember those ads. But I would also say
you're now at Chipotle.
I know. Well, or I worked for General Mills, where those were Kellogg's brands. But thanks to my mom, we were a Kellogg's household. So I would say those brands. I saw them advertised all the time, and they were influential for sure.
Yeah. So, what's the campaign or initiative you've worked on so many in your career, the one that you remember being most meaningful to you?
I think I would say the stuff that we've done, I think I'm back to the start too. We talked a little bit about that. We did another spot called Human Nature that really juxtaposed what we do and what others do. But as we really are trying to partner with nature and not fight nature in what we grow and how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did was a pure brand ad, and it really worked for us. And so, and I'd also say behind the foil, because we made the people that work in those restaurants every day, we made those people heroes and celebrities of their own right in their towns. And that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I don't know why more brands don't do that. I mean, really celebrate the people in the company.
They're on the front line every day, and those are hard jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was working in the restaurant, just standing up for 8 hours a day is no mean feat. And the culinary skills that they have and the dedication, we're lucky. There's so many people have transformed their lives at Chipotle. And you don't have to have a formal education.
Mm-hmm.
You can, we have, the stories are legion. We have a few of our regional vice presidents. So they're the guys who report into the COO. They started in the restaurant. It's just amazing stories, and they're proud of what they do and what they've accomplished. And man, they really, they have responsibility for billions of dollars. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Chipotle really hadn't done any kind of LTOs. Mostly protein LTOs is what we do. So think of the most successful one we've ever had is one we just did on Chipotle honey chicken. But there's nothing like doing an LTO on a protein that brings new people into the brand and then reactivates your existing people to come more. And so the balance, though, is how do you make it work operationally? Because our operations of all of that morning prep and everything are quite complex, and you have to train all these people in all these restaurants, and it's harder than it is at a lot of places that are just reheating stuff or that comes frozen, right? So we have to balance that. A good example is we launched quesadilla. The quesadilla is only available digitally because it slows the line down inside the restaurant too much. So we tested it in both places, and the operators were out there were like, yeah, we can do it in a restaurant. We're like, no, it slows it down, and we can't slow that line down. It needs to go fast. So we're balancing. A great marketing idea that doesn't work operationally is a really bad idea for the place. So we have a stage gate process that we vet all these things, and I think we're going to have to do more innovation. And the sauce innovation is a good one because it's low cost, it's approachable for people, it's very affordable, and it really can change the experience that you have at Chipotle. So that will continue to be important for us. And, as we get through this macro environment, you're going to see us do more innovation. And the good news is we've got a good formula for vetting it. And, the field is like, let's go. I mentioned I went to UCLA Business School. So I can't go through a whole interview without a John Wooden quote, right? And he had one of my favorite quotes of all time is, be quick, but don't hurry. And I think that's what we have to do. It's like, we need to do the things and vet the things to our stage gate process that keeps us honest and make sure that everyone's on board. But we can do that in an expedited manner and have a sense of urgency about it. But we can be quick, but we can't rush. It's when we rush, we'll get in trouble. If we start skipping steps or become complacent about the three greens of consumer, the financials, and the operator, as long as those folks are on board, we'll win. It may take a little bit more time than we like, but it'll still be faster because we have that sense of urgency. So that's how we balance it, right? And you get a good person like Stephanie, who's good on process. She tempers my enthusiasm, right? For sometimes for getting things to market really quickly.
So, Chris, we'll wrap with two questions. First one, who's been the most inspiring person in your life?
I would say my wife. I mean, my wife I got to marry my best friend, and, she has really stood by me through everything, and we moved around a lot, right? There's a cost to that, right? And I would not have been nearly as successful without her. And so everything we do, I mean, I enjoy spending time with her. We see so many couples have trouble. We do not have any. We've certainly had our ups and downs, but she's my rock, and she's a great supporter. And I would not have been half as successful as I have been without her.
You talk business with her?
She does, but she gives me, as a marketer, everybody's a marketer. So you get a lot of feedback. Yeah. And so I can always tell when I'm going to get some marketing feedback because she goes, well, I know I might not be the target, but this is what I'm saying. And so, there's a lot of, and, I will also say she's very candid, and, you might think you're special because you're standing up on some stage. Don't think you're special here. You need to still take out the trash.
Grounding. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's very smart. And she manages the whole household. And that has freed me up to just focus on, what I'm good at.
Yeah. Now we're here at the ANA. Bob Leodis, the CEO, finishes every presentation with a question to the speaker. What are you going to do? What's your advice to the audience to do when they return to work? So I'm going to turn it to you. What's your advice to the audience based on the conversation we've had about building a great brand? What's your advice to them when they return to work? Or after they stop listening to this?
I think, look, you can be bombarded with all of the changes and things, and I would tell you to embrace change, right? There was a quote in the AI presentation today from Winston Churchill. He's a quote machine, but it said, if you don't take change by the hand, it's going to grab you by the throat. And I think that, there's another one he has: to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. People, when confronted with change, tend to focus on what they might lose as opposed to what they might gain. And I think that especially if you're a brand that's not doing well, hey, this is your chance to really change things. And, and that's why I like innovation so much. It's your chance to create the future. Let's change this. A trend is not fate. You can change your future. And I think when you embrace the parts of change, you think about the changes that you've had that have been good, focus on the good parts and the positives and not the negative part of change that makes you uncomfortable. But your brain, look, it's hardwired to resist change, because in the old world, that was dangerous, but it's not that dangerous now. What's dangerous now is not adapting and embracing change. So I'd say embrace change and have a sense of urgency.
Let's give it up for Chris. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Yeah. My gosh, yes. Anytime.